What if I told you the football we play today started around 2,500 years ago? The Messi versus Ronaldo debate, Maradona's hand of God, Pele's genius on the field. We all know the iconic moments, but football's origins go way deeper than you'd think. So, how did football become the greatest sport in the world? Well, way before Messi and Ronaldo were nutmegging defenders or Maradona was, well, being Maradona, people were kicking things around just for fun. No kidding. Around 2,500 years ago, the Chinese were already playing a game called Cuju. It wasn't exactly packed with the technical rules we know today. That time, it was pretty straightforward. The rules were this: kick the leather ball through a net, and no hands were allowed. Sound familiar? Yeah, because this is technically the first recorded version of football. Ancient China were way ahead of the curve. The rest of the world just took a couple thousand years to catch up. The Greeks and Romans weren't going to sit this one out either. They had their own version, which was a brutal little game called harpastum. It was less like football and more like rugby and togas. Full-on contact, body checks, and the occasional dislocated shoulder. Wasn't exactly what you'd want on a Saturday morning kickabout, but hey, it was entertainment. Fast forward a few centuries, and we land in medieval England where things got messy. The locals played something called mob football, and if you think it already sounds chaotic, oh, you have no idea. There were no teams, no referees, and no real rules. Just two villages with an inflated pig bladder and way too much energy. The goal could be a tree, a pub, or another village miles away. Shops got destroyed, teeth got knocked out, and the only real strategy was kick and run. Kings tried to ban it more than once, like really tried. Edward II, Edward III, and Henry IV all issued official decrees attempting to shut the whole thing down. They called it violent, disruptive, and a threat to public order. And to be fair, they had a point. I mean, the game was basically organized chaos with a pig bladder at the center. But of course, humans being humans, nobody listened. The bans just made it more fun. The more the crown cracked down, the more people laced up their boots, or well, their muddy medieval shoes, and played anyway. But if there's one thing we all know, it's that banning something fun just makes people love it more. Eventually, things started to settle down just a little. Public schools and universities began playing their own versions, each with wildly different rules. Some allowed you to carry the ball, while others didn't. Some said tackling was fine, and while others had a no tackling sign on the field. These differences caused a massive split, and the carry the ball crowd gave us rugby, American football, and the kick it only people gave us what we now call football/soccer. Then in 1863, a bunch of English clubs met up in a London pub and said, right, enough chaos. They formed the Football Association, drew up some real rules, no hands and no more kicking people in the shins, and just like that, modern football was born. Or at least the chaos had some structure now. Once the rules were set, the sport didn't just grow, it exploded. And by exploded, I also kind of mean colonized. Yep, the British Empire had a knack for shipping out tea, redcoats, and apparently football. British sailors, engineers, and soldiers took the beautiful game with them everywhere. India, Africa, Australia, and South America. This was a global takeover, one game at a time. In Argentina, it was British railway workers who got the locals hooked. Over in Brazil, it was Charles Miller, just a guy who came back from England with 2 footballs and a rule book. That's it. No YouTube tutorials, no training camps, just 2 balls and vibes. Okay, that sounded way different in my head. But somehow that small spark ignited Brazil's love affair with football and turned them into the superpower we know today. Meanwhile, clubs started popping up across Europe. Barcelona, Juventus, and Bayern Munich, names that would become legends, were founded in this golden era. The game was no longer just a quirky British pastime, it was becoming a full-blown global obsession. By 1904, football was getting too big for casual kickabouts. Different European countries joined forces to create FIFA. Yes, that FIFA. At the time, it was just 7 countries thinking about making international tournaments a thing, and with that, the blueprint for the biggest show on earth was drawn. But before we get to the good stuff, humanity decided to take a detour through 2 world wars because, of course, it's us. When the smoke cleared, football picked up right where it left off. In 1930, FIFA finally pulled the trigger on its biggest idea, the first ever World Cup. Uruguay hosted it, naturally. They were Olympic gold medalists and football royalty at the time. Only 13 teams made the journey, mostly from the Americas. European countries weren't about to sail across the Atlantic just to get thrashed by Uruguay. Still, the tournament happened. Uruguay won, fans lost their minds, and FIFA knew they were onto something. This wasn't just a one-off. It was the start of a tradition that would change the sports world forever. After a pause during World War II, because, priorities, Football returned in 1950 with Brazil as the host. They built the Maracanã, a stadium so massive it could fit entire cities inside it. The final was supposed to be Brazil's crowning glory, but Uruguay had other ideas. In front of nearly 200,000 fans, they pulled off one of the greatest upsets in sports history, beating Brazil 2-1. The event was so traumatic that it got a name, Maracanazo. Brazil mourned, Uruguay celebrated, and football proved once again that the game is pure, unpredictable drama. Then, like a lift from the football gods, in 1958, Pelé came along, a 17-year-old kid from Brazil who lit up the World Cup in Sweden. He scored a hat trick in the semis, bagged 2 more in the final, and instantly became a global sensation. Brazil won that tournament, and then again in 1962. But 1970, that was something else. The 1970 Brazilian squad is still talked about till today. You know those spy movies where there's an elite squad who were only called upon in the most dangerous situations? Yeah, that was who these 4 were. Pelé, Zairzano, Tostão, and Carlos Alberto. They didn't just win games, they danced. That team played football like it was jazz. It was elegant, improvisational, and utterly joyful. They crushed Italy 4-1 in the final, and Pelé grabbed his 3rd World Cup, which, by the way, is still a record, and Brazil became the face of the sport. For most people, they still are. But while Brazil ruled the world stage, Europe was quietly building something monstrous, club football. In 1955, UEFA launched the European Cup, which later became the Champions League. The first few years were basically the Real Madrid Invitational. They won the first 5 thanks to legends like Alfredo Di Stefano and Ferenc Puskás. The 1970s brought total football, courtesy of Ajax and their genius-in-chief, Johan Cruyff. The idea was that every player would play every position. It was tactical sorcery, and it changed the game forever. Next up were the heavyweights, Liverpool, Bayern Munich, AC Milan, and Juventus, each building their own football empires at home and across Europe. In the 80s, Italy's Serie A was the ultimate hotspot because it was packed with superstar talent. Spain's La Liga brought the flares and finesse. In England, they were gearing up to unleash a rebrand that would shake things up in a big way. In 1992, the English First Division began the Premier League. There was a new logo, massive TV deals, and a whole lot of cash. The league went from gritty to glitzy overnight. There was faster play, brighter lights, and suddenly even Americans started caring about football. If we're talking unforgettable moments, we've got to mention 1986 and the wild magic of Diego Maradona. In the World Cup quarterfinal against England, he scored 2 goals that became legendary. One was sneaky, and the other was pure genius. First, the hand of God. The man literally punched the ball into the net. The ref missed it. The crowd went wild, and Maradona just shrugged. Then came the goal of the century, a solo run where he dribbled past 5 defenders like they weren't even there. The guy was pure chaos wrapped in a jersey. By the 90s and early 2000s, football was evolving again. Transfer fees were going ballistic. TV rights were sold for billions. By this time, players weren't just athletes, they were global celebrities. In 1998, France won their first World Cup on home soil. Zidane scored twice in the final with his majestic bald head and became a national hero. Then in 2002, football truly went global. Japan and South Korea co-hosted the World Cup, and Brazil won their 5th title thanks to Ronaldo's redemption arc. No, not Cristiano, the original Ronaldo, with the dodgy haircut and magical feet. Club football hit another level. Barcelona became a tiki-taka machine. Chelsea got a Russian billionaire and turned into a juggernaut. Bayern rebuilt and dominated, and Real Madrid started collecting Champions League titles like Pokemon cards. And just when you thought the game couldn't get any better, along came 2 players who would redefine the word greatness. You've definitely heard about them. I know I have. You've watched the highlight reels. For over 15 years, they ruled football. Lionel Messi, the quiet beast with a left foot that seemed almost magical, and Cristiano Ronaldo, the unstoppable machine. Messi stayed loyal to Barcelona for nearly 2 decades, breaking records and ankles equally. Ronaldo, meanwhile, took his talents from Manchester to Madrid to Turin, breaking goal records wherever he went. They pushed each other to levels we may never see again in football. 13 Ballon d'Ors between them, over 1,600 goals, and a rivalry that made every El Clasico feel like a heavyweight title fight. And now, football's bigger than ever. The Premier League is a money-making monster. Clubs like Manchester City and PSG are backed by oil empires. For context, Neymar went for $222 million. That's not a transfer. That's what you pay for a Bond villain's ransom. Technology got involved too. Enter VAR, like that one friend who always kills the vibe at a party. Sure, it's meant to make things fair, but it also turned goal celebrations into a tense waiting game to see if someone was offside by the smallest margin. On the international front, France conquered in 2018 with a team so good it felt unfair. Argentina finally gave Messi his World Cup moment in 2022, which was a poetic, full circle ending to a legendary career. And yeah, did you hear the next World Cup is going to span 3 countries? USA, Canada, and Mexico. Because apparently one host nation just isn't enough anymore. New stars are emerging, and Lamine Yamal is leading the charge. At 17, he's already turning heads and dominating the game. Mbappe's speed is terrifying, and Haaland is breaking nets for fun. The game isn't slowing down, it's evolving faster than ever. From pig bladders on muddy fields to billion-dollar stadiums, football's journey is wild. It's chaos, passion, and pure emotion, whether you're in the stands or watching on a dodgy stream. The best part? The game's still evolving. Legends are being made right now, and the next chapter is already being written. Hit like and subscribe for more amazing football videos, and share your favorite football moment in the comments. Let's talk.